Do they?
I think we contract with Atlas Artworks.
Okay. And then you assess the property?
It is most often based on neighborhood control.
Yeah. All right, we will call the meeting to order. We have approval of the minutes from the June 23rd, 2025 and the July 28th, 2025 meetings. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
So move.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. A motion to approve the agenda?
Approve.
Second.
Was that Nate or Wayne?
That was me.
Oh, sorry.
With the
Alla?
frog in my throat.
Alla and.
I could do that lower.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign. All right, next we have old business, ordinance number 69, amending the city code regarding standalone garages, section 154.031. Following the last planning commission meeting, the decision was made to establish a subcommittee to come back to the planning commission with recommendations. Provided in the packet was a redlined version of the ordinance that was drafted by City Attorney Ralph Nicomo, that was sent back to the Planning Commission from the council for consideration, and I will open it up for discussion.
Having reviewed it, and I was not on the subcommittee, so if anybody on the subcommittee wanted to talk about it, I'd hear them out. But I like it. I like the comments that are provided as well, that kind of provide some of the rationale. I think that should be, those comments should be part of what we send up. I like the edits. I had a couple of questions, maybe something that was discussed by the subcommittee. So outside storage is not allowed. There was some redlining there to allow for some outside storage. It seems like with that, I mean, kind of the purpose of building the garage would be so that you don't have outside storage. So if anybody had a comment on that, I'd be interested in hearing that. And then in the blue lining on page 3, merging the residential garage property with the primary dwelling. I guess if that is possible to do, then I would suggest a limit to 1 per residence on that, and clarify that it's within city limits, although I think that's clearly implicit in the paragraph and probably doesn't need to be added. Otherwise, those are my only 2 comments. I think the subcommittee did a good job.
Yeah, I like that addition.
I can address the first
Okay.
question, then maybe Wayne wants to address the second one. So that with the outside storage, saying no outside storage, period, we seem to be overly restrictive to us to say that you can't store anything on the property anywhere. That's where we added, and what we saw with some other similar ordinances is that they would allow storage if there was, appropriate screening that was approved by the city. But again, that's just a thought recommendation.
I have several comments, so I will hold until I put
Yeah.
them all in one thought, so I'll let Wayne go. Do you want to
Yeah.
talk on the last?
Could you repeat your question on that?
Well, maybe I can talk, well,
Well, so I think we had put, the second one, that was about tying, let's say, a standalone garage parcel to a primary residence. And the subcommittees, and this is just one shot, this might not be the only way, and I hope we reflected that in the comments, but somehow if you could tie a standalone parcel to someone who's actually connected to the community. So it's not owned by somebody living in, let's say, the Twin Cities, who's not watching it, controlling vectors, letting it go in disrepair. That was the intent there.
Yeah.
And maybe that's not even a feasible way to do it. This is just for the council to consider, is what.
If it's possible, for what it's worth, I like that. I like that this garage thing is then a benefit to residents. It's something we don't have to, the city doesn't have to allow it at all. So to allow it for people who we know are local, going to take care of the property, that's one of the major concerns with these garage things, is that the property's going to fall into disrepair. So having it attached in name only maybe to local residents here, while allowing them to be non-adjacent, I think that's a fair compromise.
I don't think that it's possible to have how you've drafted it here. Like, I don't think you can tie the parcels together. I don't know, but we could have a requirement that any applicant for a conditional use permit under this code would have to be a resident of the city of Fergus Falls. But you're not going to tie the parcels together.
Yeah, you wouldn't go into the GIS and have them have a shared parcel or anything like
Right,
that. yeah.
that's not possible, but you could make a requirement that they be a resident of the city of Fergus Falls.
However mechanically or logistically it's done, I think that's a good idea.
A few comments that I had. Under section 1D, we took out the language of the height. So it did read that the maximum sidewall height of the structure shall not exceed 19 feet. And it was changed to say, the maximum height shall not exceed the height of neighboring residential structures and shall be in conformance with the neighborhood. That's really ambiguous as to like, what are neighboring structures? Is it like a house a block away from me, 2 blocks away within my neighborhood? Is it adjacent to? So I like the hard feet, like I like the 19 feet. Because otherwise it's like, well, there's one 3-story house in my neighborhood, so I can make this garage 30 feet or 50 feet, or whatever the height requirement is for the city. So I wouldn't want a 3-story garage next to me, even if I have a 3-story house. It's just different. So we can go one by one. If we want to talk about that comment first, or do you want me to keep?
I think the subcommittee's intent was, rather than put a specific number on it that might not fit all situations, have it open and have a similar process to what, when Mr. Reinertsen came in during the last, I think it was 2 meetings ago, and wanted to put a porch on the front. And he did a good job of describing how that fit in with the houses around him.
Yeah, but that was a variance request, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
So like, we have like restrictions in the city of like how tall a fence can be
Yeah.
and how tall. I'm thinking of from the city's perspective of like enforcement. And it's pretty much, if we have the language as it is, there is no height requirement. There is no height restriction.
Sure.
You can build it which is fine.
The idea I think what we were talking about was when there's a street that has all one-level houses on it, and then something goes 19 feet, and it causes maybe a visual disruption or something that looks just totally, not even so much cosmetically as much as the sun blocks out
Yeah.
a 10-foot, and then you go 9 feet higher. It just was, and everything else was the same. It was just to be out of the ordinary, I guess, but which is hard to enforce, I guess.
It's it's very gray. It's very gray. And it is just, what is neighboring? We could define that closer to be like adjacent to, then that's clear. That's your house on either side of you. You have to build it in conformance with the height of those structures. But neighboring, there's like no,
Right.
yeah.
It's borderless.
To the extent there's ever gray area on this, it's always going to be higher. I mean, people are always going to be arguing for higher. So maybe the original 19 feet is okay, because then everybody knows going into it what you can build and what you can't build. two citizens in different, residents in different lots in different neighborhoods get treated exactly the same, you know?
Yeah, I tried to call Ralph today to talk about where he got that number, because I didn't see 19 in like any other.
It's in our accessory structure section.
Oh, okay.
That's where it is.
Okay. Well, I mean, we could keep the 19, and to Wayne's point about what if you have a, row of single-level houses, you could say maximum of 19, but not to exceed the height of adjacent residences. Then you'd have upper bounds, but if the neighborhood was lower than that, then they would be, the upper bounds would be pushed down and accordingly.
I like that.
That would match pretty well with the accessory structure code,
Okay.
which is 19 feet or the height of the primary structure. In this case, the garage is the primary structure, so you'd be matching it to the primary structure surrounding,
Yeah,
which is very subjective, but doable.
but not as
Not as subjective.
as this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay?
I like that. I guess it came back to us, the next change is it came back to us from city council saying that outside storage is not allowed, period. And we changed language as was already stated, allowing outside storage, but not in front of the building. This is one of the, I think this is one of the main concerns with these garages, right, in residential, is that we drive around, anyone can drive around Fergus Falls right now, and there are residential homes that have a lot of things outside. And when you have a garage that is storage, there's a possibility that people are storing things there, right? So I'm a little concerned to allow outside storage from an enforcement perspective from the city, because it's like, where's the line? And if I buy a corner lot, what's the front of the building? You know, like, I don't know. I just don't, I think it should be,
Just keep it simple.
I think we should keep it how the council sent it to us and to say it's not allowed. Obviously, anyone have
I'm
any
okay
thoughts
with
on
that.
that?
Yeah,
I think
let
that's
it be case by case, and the city can monitor that.
Yeah.
One of the questions that I had today, and I talked to Claire about it, and I think, did you put these ordinances in front of everybody or just me? Okay. I just wanted to make sure that mowing and snow removal
Are addressed.
are addressed. And so they are addressed, and just so the commission is aware, they are addressed in other areas of the code. And so both snow removal, ice removal, and vegetation are in, again, other areas of the code where the city has the authority to come in and provide notice to the landowner that they're not in compliance with the code. And if they don't correct the violation, then the city comes and they remedy the violation, and they'll assess the property owner for that cost. So, just so everyone's aware that there's no language in the ordinance about that, but it's taken care of in other areas of the code, because I know that was a concern for people that I've spoken to in the community. The other thing is, I had a comment about the language that we already resolved about the tying together of the two properties. So I think we should add language in here again that says that anyone who applies for a conditional use permit under this section must be a resident of the city of Fergus Falls. And then two other things. There is no setbacks in here. Did you look into that at all, Clara? So, there's no lot line setbacks in this ordinance, so
Oh, it
I
should
think
be.
that that's something
Should
that,
be in alignment with all other residential
yeah,
building.
yeah.
The
'Cause-
underlying district.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That could also be a condition though on their conditional use permit, right? Then
As
it
far
could
as
be
setback.
conformative of whatever lot it is, neighborhood, et cetera, because each one of those may vary.
Yeah, I think, well,
They do vary.
they do vary from like R, yeah,
Right.
to R2, yep,
So maybe that's just best to be a part of the conditions on the permit.
yep.
And then one other thing to just add under D, the maximum allowable lot size, I'd prefer to change that to a maximum square footage versus dimensional for odd-shaped lots, irregular shaped lots sized.
Where?
Section 1D,
Square footage instead of
Yeah.
lot size.
so, I mean, 50 by 150 is 7,500 square feet.
So the subcommittee added that just as a tool for the council to use if, you know, they wanted to focus on smaller lots, that would be maybe more appropriate versus, and restrict, you know, standalone garages on larger lots that could have more development potential. This would be a clause where they could do it. Those numbers were like a minimum lot in Fergus, so the council might want to look at what that number should be. I don't know, it should be the minimum, because that's going to be pretty restrictive.
Sure. I mean,
They may want to increase that,
yeah.
but, you know, the intent was to leave it up to them to pick that number.
Yeah, we were trying to discourage that type of property from housing that, just to prevent any of that long-term riffraff that could happen from just a garage standing there. So that was, again, why we chose a lot minimum, but if square footage makes sense, it'll be up to them.
Yeah, there was conversation at the council initially that this would make sense for lots that were not otherwise buildable.
Yeah, it just never made it in here anywhere.
Right,
The only thing I see is that some lots may have the adequate square footage, but could never be used to build a house on because of narrow and, you know, angled lines and whatnot, potentially.
Right, but we're saying the maximum, not the minimum. We're just saying that, you know, maybe your lot isn't 50 feet wide by 100 feet deep. Maybe it's 75 by 75, 75 by 100 or whatever it may be, right? So I would just, I'd like to see a max square footage of allowable lot size versus dimensional.
That's a good comment.
yeah, I like that. Should we, so we don't really have information for, I mean, we could do 7,500.
You know, another thing we could do is add a sentence to this comment, this PV3 comment that says the planning commission, or the council should consider dimensional or square footage requirements. I don't know, just leave it to them to figure out if this is even a direction they want to go, and then maybe Ralph could answer the question on what that maximum is, you know? But, because I like the idea too, but rather than sit here and try to think of all the eventualities, we could just add it as a recommendation if they look at it.
Yeah, because when you look at the maximum impervious surface, including the structure, shall be 50% of the lot area. We don't have a lot restriction, we could have some big garages on some of these bigger lots.
3-story ones.
Yeah. 3-story ones with outside storage. It's gonna be.
So I am trying to capture these comments. I don't know if anybody else is.
Well, we're taking minutes.
Okay.
Is that all the comments?
That's all I have.
Okay.
Well, I guess the one last thing I thought about, I don't have proposed language with me right now, is there's no, if someone, you know, there's no penalty, I guess, if someone like makes a non-conforming, constructs a non-conforming garage. So I was looking at some ordinances today that have some penalty language in them that the city, I mean, it's kind of, the city has the authority, I think, if they're not conforming, to take legal action regardless of whether or not we put penalty language in here, so I don't think it's necessary, but.
It's like the penalty for violating a CUP.
Well, yeah. So I don't think, like, if someone doesn't use material, or like, it's a metal siding versus, I mean, the material language in here is pretty vague anyways, I think.
But do they have to have a plan together as far as placement and size and stuff submitted as part of the CUP application?
I think in the case of these garages, we would likely do kind of a combination application process where there are special permit requirements, like they're providing the site plan, the materials list, that sort of thing, and it's going through the CUP process, so the two would be together. That's how I'm envisioning doing it.
That was another thing that I saw in other ordinances, there was like a list of you will provide X, like the building plan, like all the specs and everything at the time you apply, so that the city can ensure that compliance is, there's nothing like that in here.
Mm-hmm. So there maybe could be, I mean, there's a tension there, or a balance, where you don't want to require them to like engineer necessarily the entire thing and spend a bunch of money on something that then gets denied. But on the other hand, this is an exception to the rule that they're trying to meet, and so they should be able to show that they can meet it, I guess.
They do have to provide some sketch or a drawing or rendition for a building permit, so I mean, I
Okay.
don't think that would be anything out of line. I mean, it can be simply just,
Yep.
here's the road, here's the setback, here's what the structure is,
Yep.
picture of the building material or siding or whatever it may be. Yeah, I don't think that's unreasonable.
Should that language be added in then as part of this process?
So-
that that's required?
So like when we do like a sign variance, or like we did the cell tower, was that part of their application process that they needed to provide all that detail, or was that just kind of known?
Cell tower is different because it has a special permit
Okay.
attached to it, and it's required, like that special permit requires them to go through the CUP process, so yes, it was a requirement, but something
But does the,
like a garage.
yep, so when they apply for a building permit, all those details need to be ironed out, right?
Right, but most of the time they'd be applying for their building permit after they leave.
Okay.
So that wouldn't necessarily be presented as part of the CUP.
Right.
Unless they were like going above and beyond and wanted to.
Sure.
show.
Okay,
Yeah. Because most people will want to ensure that the zoning is correct before they go forward with the project.
okay,
That's just what I've seen.
yep. So I mean, I'd be comfortable with requiring a rendition of it. I don't even care if it's hand-drawn. I mean, just,
Yeah, we do a lot of this,
Yeah.
lots of
Yeah.
hand-drawn, so that's fine.
yep,
And they could just, as part of the application, even just state what the building materials are gonna be.
Sure.
What the siding's gonna be, what the roof is,
So 8B, on the first page there, it says building construction and materials shall meet the requirements of the state building code and shall be approved by the building official. So are we covered there?
I think that's more like from a safety perspective, isn't it? Not like,
But
From
it's
like a
still,
code, but
it's
not-
still saying the construction materials need to be approved by the
Well, yeah, but it also, I think a separate paragraph touching on the things that we've talked about, including placement and setbacks and stuff, which wouldn't be necessarily covered by the state building code.
but the setbacks, we talked about those, handling those on an individual case-by-case basis, right? Because each section of town, each lot could be different, right? It would be conditions that we would put on the CUP at that point. So I mean,
Yeah.
I think when it comes to just the material itself, probably 8B covers that, but if there were gonna be any conditions of, any opposition out there saying, we don't want you to use that style of siding, whatever that may be, right? Those would be conditions that we'd put on as the permit, so I think having, you know, making rendition required, as well as, you know, especially what exterior siding, fascia, whatever you're talking about, to be an example provided, or a picture of it provided, or description of it provided, I think is totally reasonable. Because a conditional use permit is gonna come with a public hearing, right? So anybody that's in opposition to it, and whether it's that neighborhood or the community or whatever, would wanna know that detail. So I think if we just collected it up front and made it transparent, it gives people an opportunity to talk about it at the public hearing.
Yep.
So something like a new section saying renditions of adequate detail shall be provided as part of the CUP application process?
Sure.
I think we should be adequate detail.
I know that's vague.
Well, so like the applicant shall provide,
A building layout,
yes, yeah.
yeah.
A sketch of the proposed structure,
We'd call it like a site plan.
site plan, yeah. Provide a site plan and,
Just specifications of building materials.
sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would maybe narrow that up to exterior building materials,
Yeah.
right? Because it could
Yeah.
get quite lengthy, which we don't care,
Yeah.
but, yeah.
To make it more uniform, would we identify roof, siding, or wall structure so that they actually know what we're looking for, so it's a check system for them? Roof type, whether it's, steel or whether it's shingles. Exterior walls, are you using,
I
press-
would just say exterior roof and finishes.
That's, yeah,
Yep.
just so that they're not like figuring out what does that mean?
What does finishes mean?
Maybe give them choice of steel, cement.
Roofing, wall cover, exterior wall covering.
There you go. Let them fill in the blank.
Are we really concerned about anything else besides that? I think the rest of it's really covered.
You got that?
Got it.
Anything else? No? You have a comment?
Yes, please.
Yep. You want to just state your name?
Yes. Jason Burns, live at 606 North Woodland Drive. Just kind of wanted to make a comment about the lengthy discussion about a description of the size and style of the location of the building. I think a lot of that is already covered in section 8K. The application for a conditional use permit must include a drawing accurately depicting the size, style, and location of the building on the lot. I think from the discussion I was hearing, I think most, if not all, of what was being talked about is already covered in what is written in here.
Yeah, maybe you can just add a little bit more specifics to that section.
Yeah, I would say application include a drawing accurately depicting the size, style, and location, and somewhere in there have including the roofing and exterior wall covering and location of the building on the lot. Right, so include
Yep.
those two.
Yep.
Thanks for the comment.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anything else?
Would it be appropriate to, I'm trying to figure out where to place the local resident, like the requirement that the CUP applicant be a local resident?
So I think it's page 3, that blue language. A residential garage, starting with a residential garage. So Yeah, like a condition of the CUP shall require that the property be owned at all times by a resident of Fergus Falls?
The tough scenario that the subcommittee talked about is, let's
some-
say Uncle Joe passes away and his niece down in the cities inherits it. You know, the day that happens, they're now in violation. So to require that for all time is tough, I think. You know, at least if we require it at the time of application, that helps us a little bit. But I don't know, tough to do it in perpetuity.
Well, and then the example I gave last time, so if you're maybe a snowbird, you rent, so you don't have the maintenance aspect. If your primary residence happens to be in Florida, there's a lot more tax benefit to being a primary resident in Florida than Minnesota. So, but maybe you spend 6 months out of the year living here. I think that's very hard to police. I mean, I'm okay with tying it to a resident on the initial application. I mean, however we want to move forward with it, I'm okay with that. I'd prefer it to not even be in there, but I understand the concern.
Was it understood that it's possible to tie with a residence, not by parcel number, but some other way?
I'm not sure of the mechanism to do that. And I'm just thinking about it from, you know, the way that we work with properties currently. There's almost no way for like me to track that so-and-so owns a house over here and they also own this property over here, and to be able to look at records and know that in any kind of easy way.
And I don't know the history of parcel numbers and identifying property that way, where you don't put some identification that it's linked to this other parcel number.
There's no way to do that.
Okay.
I'll tell you, there's no way to do that.
So if there's no way to do it, then maybe we just revert to at the time of application. Resident at the time of application, and from there, we just decide that we can't police it anymore.
And it'll achieve the goal that I think, but we're not going to be able to make it perfect.
Right. And I think that was a discussion we had when we talk about even going down this path. You'll eventually have these disconnected standalone garages that are just able to be sold and difficult to police even if we could do it. But if we're going to do it, then I'd like to say at the time of application then, so that there's something there, some nexus to the city, some nexus to, you know.
Maintenance and
Yeah, you're
upkeep
not coming here just to, you know, use the city for your storage unit. It's, you know, you've got your situation with your house and your other property, you want to build a garage. It's something, it's a kind of a benefit to a resident, at least at the start.
There was an interesting comment in here on assessments. So, and I don't know how that would work either. Because, so typically, an assessment is unlawful if the increased benefit of the improvement does not exceed, that it does exceed the assessment. So if you're assessed $10,000, but you only have a benefit to your property of $5,000, that's an illegal assessment because you were assessed more than what your property was benefited. So when you have a garage that has less value, there's a possibility that the city could have issues with assessing that property because it's not bringing the amount of value that it would maybe bring a residential home. Does that make sense?
But wouldn't that exist today with it just being a vacant lot?
I don't know how vacant lots are assessed.
I am not going to pretend to be an expert on assessments.
Yeah.
I do know that a lot of the time assessments come into play at least in areas of town where we know that there's, like, I'm thinking of Progress Drive, right? So we have lots that have been improved, or there is infrastructure to those lots, but they haven't been built on. And the way that we have those set up currently is that assessments are not put online, so to speak, until a building is there and they're connected to those utilities.
Right.
So I suppose there could be an instance where somebody builds a garage and they do not connect to utilities. They're not using sewer or water. Yeah, I would wonder, how does that assessment process work? So I would hope that maybe when this gets back to the council level, they would address that question.
Yeah. That was one thing that just came in my head when I was reviewing it today. I was like, oh, I don't know how that would work. All right. So next steps,
So next steps, I think.
we had 60 days.
Yep, I think what we would need to do is, Sarah, maybe you and I work together on capturing all of these thoughts into like a memo situation, and then either have Rolf draft a version of it that's been agreed to by the planning commission here at this meeting, and then send that on to council, or just send the memo that has the changes and updates that planning commission is suggesting.
I think it would be beneficial to send a draft back to them versus a memo.
Then we can work on getting that memo drafted and then have Rolf incorporate that language in your draft.
Then would we have to wait until next month to approve it?
Well, I think you'd have to all agree that you are at a point where you're happy with your suggestions, and then just trust that everything's getting into that memo appropriately, and then council's just gonna have to take it from there, unless we have a special session.
I think we should vote on it now and send it to council. I mean, we've discussed this for how many months?
Right.
I think we're in alignment here.
Yeah.
Yeah, Paul, I mean, if we could do a motion, Paul, could you just recap all the changes and proposals that you've maybe had an opportunity to grab, and we'll offer clarification?
I'll fumble through them.
Okay.
But, so as, you know, so the deviations that I have from what was in your packet would be altering the the maximum allowable lot size from like a dimensional size to a square footage. Leave it up to the council as to what that should be. We are going to add back in the maximum height of 19 feet, and/or in conformance with the adjacent residential properties.
Does that mean not to exceed?
Yeah, I think that's, or not to exceed the height of the adjacent residential properties. In the case that you have, let's say, single level.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay? Okay, outside storage, we are going to keep that as was sent to us by the council. And just to read, outside storage is not allowed. We are going to add in paragraph K some more specifics about what the applicant needs to provide. Specifically, it's going to be some exterior roof and wall coverings, and site layout sketch of the proposed structure. The paragraph in blue that we added towards the end about tying parcels together will be struck, and we'll change that to a requirement that the applicant be a resident of the city at the time of application.
Can I bring up one more point, not to belabor the issue, but asterisks. Can asterisks be used relating to a PID?
What do you
To
mean?
reference that it is tied to another property. I mean, when you say you cannot tie parcels together, I think that's what you said, right?
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yep.
Well, I don't really know what you mean by tie them together.
Well,
Maybe, but you can't,
somehow identify them as one ownership.
yeah, I just don't, we could create a database that does that.
Right.
but there's no existing database that I'm aware of. You can go on the Ottertail County GIS, and then I can type in your name, and I can see what property you own. Is that what you're meaning by tying together? But that's me, you have to go and you have to do that search, and you have to look it up. But the city and the county aren't maintaining.
They just have to
They
show
just
proof that
show
they're residents
who
of
the owner
the city.
is, yeah.
Bring a utility bill
By name. Yeah.
by the name of the applicant.
They would have to tell us where they live in the city of Fergus Falls.
Yeah.
They'd have to have a primary residence in the city of Fergus Falls.
Right, I'm saying after the fact to identify if you're looking up a parcel number, if there was an asterisk by that parcel number.
Where are you looking it up and who's maintaining that?
Well, I look from a real estate standpoint, I
Yeah.
always look up parcel numbers. So maybe I'm just thinking from my own,
Like I said, when I'm looking for parcels, the only thing I'm aware of is the Ottertail County GIS. And you can search their GIS by parcel number, you can search by last name, you can search by address. And you can pull up who owns, but like, there's, no one's maintaining a database unless like the city or the county creates it. And I don't think that's, I think that's kind of, I don't know what the purpose of it would be, I guess.
yeah, it's on the sales side of it. That's where,
So you're
Wait.
thinking if I own a house
yeah,
in the city of Fergus Falls and I have a garage on a totally different parcel, that if I sell my house, I have to sell my garage too?
exactly.
I don't think that's our
I don't think we
position.
can do that.
Well, that's
That's where-
what it said here. We just didn't
Yeah.
really cover that.
Yeah, I'm in support of that, but I agree logistically, I don't think it can be done.
Yeah. I
Okay,
don't think legally we can do that.
fair enough.
Unless you had them add a covenant at the time of building, but I don't know that you can.
So
tell
I think if someone had a mortgage on their house, their lender would have maybe a problem with adding a covenant. It just can't be done, and is a reason the council should maybe not go forward with this, but,
Like that's a concern, right? That's why,
so, oh, sorry.
It's so, adding resident at the time of application is something, but it'd be pretty easy for an entrepreneur individual who lives in Fergus to buy a parcel, build a garage, then sell it 6 months later, and then do it again, you know what I mean? So you're not, I mean, so we're not, it's not a very big hurdle to get over,
Right.
but it's something.
Quick question. So what does this look like going forward if we approve everything that was just read? Can't we just send this red line up with the comments on? and
Or do
that's
we
the
send the
memo?
red line and put the comments in a memo to make it a little cleaner?
I think we should just clean this up with what you just said and send that up to the council.
I kind of like these comments, though.
We can keep the comments in there, but are we gonna redline this version?
Well, I think.
Well, I think we
with
could
those
edit,
changes-
we could edit the red lines.
Yeah.
To update to our new red lines.
Yeah, that's
So
what
like-
I think we
so
should,
like
and then
the
we
blue
can send
would-
that.
The blue would not be in there at all anymore.
Right.
We'd have this, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Okay,
But keep all the comments, like
Yeah.
on the side. yeah.
right. Okay, or there may be a question from the audience.
Oh, yeah. This isn't a public hearing, but I'll give you the opportunity to speak, Mr. Layton.
Well, I appreciate the effort that you've put into this. It's come a long ways. I'd like to go down that checklist. Outside storage, you can drive by any garage today and you can see outside storage. Be it a garbage container, a mower, you name it. I don't think that's fair for a standalone garage, to stand out different than a residential garage. I don't think it's fair either that it's not allowed to be bought by an out-of-towner. If I live in Minneapolis and my son lives here and I want to put up a shed for him, I should be able to do that. You have other qualifications here that make sure this standalone garage is applicable to the neighborhood. Does it really matter if I live in town or don't live in town? Or, in the event I did own this standalone garage on a lot and I die, and my child inherits it, or my trust inheritance, what happens? I think that's a little short-sighted. Disrepair, I don't think that needs to be addressed. We have enough problems in Fergus Falls with a home. You can decide who is in disrepair versus not disrepair. I don't know if the city can make that decision. It's very difficult. There are homes that are well-maintained and some homes that, unfortunately, by maybe budget, they're not. The height matter is immaterial as long as it stays to the adjacents, and I agree with you that, neighborhood should be defined if it's the 4 houses around you, the the homes are beside you across the street. My question on snow, what does that mean? Just a sidewalk?
Mr. Layton, there's this code that covers snow removal, so that just the existing city code applies.
Yeah,
We're not changing that.
yeah, thank you. Lot size, GIS determines that. If I buy a lot from the city, it's a lot. Should that necessarily be addressed in this? Because there's lots that are quite small, and there are lots that the city's already planned that are quite large. Should that be a limitation? If I stand in this larger lot or the smaller lot and comply with your other regulations, setback and size?
I think that's what we're asking the council to determine.
And just so you're aware, again, I'll remind you, we send recommendations to the city council, okay? So a lot of these changes that you're saying, the city council sent us this ordinance draft, okay? So you as a city council member, you've already seen this. You as a city council sent this to us to review. And a lot of these changes that you're disagreeing with is language that was on the draft that you sent to us to approve. So I'm frustrated. This is the exact nature of my frustration that I've expressed before, is that we aren't changing what the city council, it's super inefficient for you as a city council member to come here and to express these sentiments when the city council is the one who sent us this draft. And we're not making any material changes to it. The 19 feet, that was in the draft. The no outside storage, that was in the draft. So, again, we will send this back up to the council, and you can make all of these comments as sitting council member at the time it's in front of you as a council member. But I don't think it's appropriate for you to come here and talk. I don't know if you're here as a city council member or in your personal capacity, but if you don't agree with the draft that council sent to us, then that's the essence of my frustration. It's super inefficient. If the council's gonna send us something to review, there needs to be a consensus. Because it's a waste of our time to review something if you guys don't have a consensus on what you agree to. I'll give you 1 more minute.
I appreciate your frustration. It's been brought to the council, from the council originally to come to you with your suggestions. And it appears to me that you've already made some changes to what was brought to you. I'm speaking as an individual trying to focus this committee to fine-tune this a little bit. I'm speaking on myself. I can't speak for the council. But if you don't want to spend the time to listen to some common sense to ease this ordinance, policy, whatever you want to call it, and get it passed by the council, I think that would be beneficial if you did. They came to you to set the policy. That was the intent of this committee. I apologize that I have a different flavor of the council. I apologize that the council sent you something that may not have applied to all situations. They came to you for advice. I'm trying to help you make that final advice. I'm not here preaching. I'm giving you an insight. And if you're offended, I apologize. I'm here to help Fergus Falls. And if that's out of my structure, so be it. I think I spent my minute. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we just went through all the changes.
The only thing I didn't hear was, were there setbacks? Did you go through the change on the setbacks?
Those,
I think that those are going to take care of themselves during the permit process, because they're neighborhood specific.
be
Yep.
part of the condition.
And
Yeah.
we do
The-
have K that requires the site plan, so.
Yep.
I do think, I get the intent of including them as a condition. I do think there should be something that, that is in here that says that they will match the setbacks of the underlying district. Because there aren't that many differences in our setbacks from zone to zone. R1 is only slightly different from R2 through R4, and R2 through R4 are the exact same. So I just think it should be tied to that underlying district.
If you read that last paragraph, Clara, that starts, I'm sorry, not the last one, but the last one before section 2, where it starts a residential garage, are we covered there? Because it talks about that they have to comply with, any other requirements specified by the city.
And this is only in an R1 district as well.
Right, but it's applicable to all
Okay.
districts following R1, because the CUP
Okay.
option is available then
So,
to all districts.
so in that event, I don't think we are covered, because other requirements specified by the city council would require the city council to then look at it. Those are just the conditional use, the conditions, right?
Yeah,
It would be easy to add. That's like a one-sentence clause add,
Yeah.
Clara. It's super easy to put in there. Doesn't hurt us at all.
Yeah, just say the setback shall conform with the underlying setbacks required by the zoning district.
Okay, so there's been enough interim discussion that I think we should go through these again. So we have on section 1D, lot size, square footage with our comment there that advises the council look at that. Section 1E, 19 feet not to exceed the height of neighboring adjacent primary residential structures. Everything else as presented. Paragraph H, outside storage not allowed, go back to that.
I'm sorry, I do have one other, with F, why was 20 feet versus 30 feet? You can't fit a car in a 20-foot garage anymore.
Okay, so yeah, that's just commenting of some architectural relief for visual purposes.
Right.
We can put that back to 30. The ones that we had reviewed were more like 20.
Okay.
It's not saying you can't build walls.
But to build just a straight wall, like 30 feet long, is what you're telling me I can't do? Like a normal size two-stall garage is like 24 by 24. That's what average is. So if I can't exceed 20 feet without doing a bump out, then that's just unnecessary added cost. I would
I'd be fine
much
going
rather
with-
see that at 30 feet.
30 would be fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think the subcommittee would have a concern with that.
Okay.
Okay, so.
Sorry, I didn't catch that earlier.
That-
Yeah.
D was the square footage with the comment. E was 19 feet not to exceed the height of neighboring adjacent primary residential structures. F, go back to 30 feet rather than 20 feet. H, outside storage is not allowed, period, removal of that's what the council sent us. And elimination of the blue language at the end saying that the applicant shall be a resident of Fergus Falls at the time of the application. And that's my motion to approve
And the
that.
lot lines. We forgot the lot line again. Just the language that
Go
I,
ahead.
That was right before he started in, so yeah.
Yes.
And the lot lines, or the setbacks rather, will comply with, or will conform with the underlying residential district.
yes.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. Next item on our agenda, new business, battery energy storage system zoning. Turn it over to Clara Beck for staff report.
And I will just start by saying there is no action required of you tonight on battery energy storage. This is just a conversation that we are going to be continuing to have as the months unfold. We had initially started looking at battery energy storage systems in relation to a project that was proposed on Port Authority property. That project, that was this spring, that project did not move forward, but in discussions with some other companies, including Otter Tail Power, it is entirely likely and very, well, it's going to happen that there will be battery energy storage projects that are going to be coming to the city of Fergus Falls. We don't currently address those in our zoning code in any way. We do have sections now related to solar projects, which are similar, but these are distinct uses. So I wanted to kind of like set the stage a little bit and make sure that I'm going in the right direction with some of the changes that I'll be bringing to you, with the huge caveat that I am not an expert in battery energy storage systems. So a lot of this is new to me, which is why it's probably going to take us a little time to get to a place where we're really comfortable with what we'll be suggesting to add to the city code. So I do have just this PowerPoint is only somewhat relevant to what we will be working on, but it's pulled from New York State. A company in New York State put forward kind of like a draft ordinances that cities can adopt that are relevant to battery energy storage systems, and so they have lots of different tools available that municipalities can use to introduce some of that language into their own codes. So you're going to see a lot of stuff that's New York related, but it's because they're kind of like the gold standard at this point, and we'll be adjusting from there. So here we go. And if you do not want to stay and hear about battery energy storage systems, like, no love lost, just to be clear.
Were you talking to us?
No, you guys are stuck here, but
This is a 49
our
slide
friends in the
presentation.
audience. Yeah, we won't go through all of them. Okay, so, blah, 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 okay, so yeah, NYSERDA is where we're getting a lot of this information. So, oh my gosh, okay. Here we go, model zoning law. So, battery energy storage model law. Basically, they're laying out for us, like, why do you need battery energy storage regulations? Because it's a very distinct use, different from things that are currently in our code, and especially city code like that of Fergus Falls, which is, you know, from the 1960s, a lot of it. Things have changed a lot. So, I just want to run through some of the options that they give us to look at and then kind of get a feel for a direction that you'd like to go. So we're going to skip through this authority piece because that doesn't really matter. This. Okay, first up is definitions. There are a couple different ways that we could define battery storage in our code. And the way that this New York documentation does it is by breaking them into two different tiers. Tier 1 is essentially like a small project that could be located as an accessory on a property, could even be used for like a home battery storage system. And tier 2 would be a larger system. I think the projects that we are likely going to be seeing in the next 5 years will be more of this tier 2 type, where they're very large, like multi-acre projects, similar to a solar farm, a little bit more contained, but these larger projects. Another way that other municipalities have defined battery energy storage systems is actually just based on their use. So rather than, you know, breaking it down to the kilowatt hours, like breaking it off that way, it would be based on like, this is a use related to a solar farm or directed or connected directly to the grid, et cetera. So it would be maybe a few more definitions. I think the tier 1 and tier 2 does make sense, and it gives us the ability as a city to say, you know, smaller projects, we maybe don't need to have as much oversight over those. Those will still require building permits, but perhaps they don't need any kind of specialized permitting from the city. And then that would give us a little bit more control over the larger projects, where we could maybe be saying we would prefer it in, our RA zone versus any of our residential zones, other than RA. So like tier 1 could be an accessory or something that's not really regulated closely by the planning commission / city council. And then the larger projects would obviously have a little bit more scrutiny to them. So just getting a feel, what are your initial thoughts? Does anybody have any background with battery energy storage projects? I know, Nate, you work for Otter Tail Power. Maybe this is something that...
Paul also works for.
Oh,
Otter
yeah,
Tail
sorry,
Power.
Paul. Yes, you do. So, and I think Mike actually works for a solar company. So I was hopeful that he'd be here tonight and he could maybe weigh in on some of these projects that are going to be in our future. But yeah, just initial thoughts on how we could be looking at these projects coming in, and then how we would define those in our code.
I mean, it's going to probably end up being very similar to what has been done in the past, and whether it's a industrial location, like similar to our substations, similar to like what we would have in a solar field, what the Hoot Lake plant used to consist of, et cetera. So, I mean, you're not going to see these, at least initially, just like pop up in a neighborhood, right? Not to say that
So it'll be larger
couldn't
scale
come, but
projects.
as far as anything that, would be on the immediate horizon, it would be what we would consider utility scale. Anything smaller than that would probably have to integrate with our existing distribution infrastructure, which, we would probably just consider that as part of, covered underneath our franchise agreement that we'd operate under with the city. So think of like the transformers in your backyard, the poles in the boulevard. Those would be equipment and apparatuses that would kind of have to fit into that framework and not be disruptive to the neighborhood.
Okay, so let's say that there is going to be a project that is small in a residential neighborhood. Right now, in our solar ordinance, we state that like a rooftop solar project, something like that, does not require any kind of special permitting. It's just considered to be an accessory use in our zoning code, and they just have to follow, like the building inspector would have to go and ensure that everything's, up to code that way. Do we feel comfortable with a definition then of maybe these tier 1 storage systems that would be smaller, matching them to that kind of accessory use where they'd be on the same parcel as, say, a home or a small business, and we wouldn't consider them to be we wouldn't require them to have separate permitting?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if we'd even necessarily bother with
Including.
even shedding a light on it, right? I mean, so if you look at just some of the residential solar, I mean, they have what they call net metering, right? So essentially excess production being sold back to the utility provider, and if they don't have that, they operate on essentially their own storage system, right? Which just serves that resident parcel, whatever. It's small enough that I don't really think that we would even care, right? It should be covered underneath state electrical code, building code, et cetera, that really it isn't necessarily a zoning
Well,
issue,
so to
but-
that end then, in our solar zoning code, would we potentially consider removing residential storage from having to be considered under the zoning code? Or do we leave it in because it gives people a path and they see, like, oh, I could do this? I could
Well-
go either way.
That gets tricky, right? So like, Otter Tail Power uses your water heater as technically a battery because you can store energy and then release it over time while we control the energy, right? So like we control water heating. We're not allowing you to charge or heat your water, but you're releasing what you already have charged, right? It's essentially the concept of a battery. So when you talk energy storage, I mean, I get what the consensus is, like what we're aiming to get at here, but there's more unconventional type energy storage that fall into this realm. So it just depends on, you know, what are we ultimately concerned with as a community? And I'd say would be what we would define as the utility scale type storage stuff, right?
Okay, yeah.
I mean, feel free to, Paul, jump in or disagree. I mean,
So my suggestion would be focus on tier two and develop what we think would be appropriate for tier two. And then after that, we could consider whether or not anything is even worthy of note for tier one.
yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, typical utility scale battery systems, you have a housing structure that the batteries are in that's fully enclosed. And then outside that is a transformer. And you kind of, you know, so that's the pairing. Then they're, you know, you can scale those up with however many you want. And then, I mean, they're energized, they're fenced. This isn't something that utility companies are going to want to put in the residential area, just for security purposes,
Okay,
you know.
thank you. Okay. So that's helpful to this definition section. Here's examples. I don't know, is this a residential?
Your label, there's just tier one.
Yep. But I'm just thinking, is this one on a house? That's interesting. Okay, moving on. So here we go. Yes, the tier two, these larger utility scale. Another piece of it that I wanted to just kind of like get some consensus on before I start like really working on the code language is the comfort level with requiring that a lot of the like the regulation and control of these projects, the safety of these projects, like we can reference it, but this municipality is not the one that's policing it necessarily. So when a project is coming to the city for zoning, right, we would assume at that point that it's already been at the state level and being approved that way, and that it's meeting certain regulations that are required by the state. Do we feel comfortable with that and agree with that? Is that the reality? I'm thinking about the Hoot Lake Solar Project, which I know is slightly different because solar and these two things are distinct uses, but when that project came to the city, it had already gone through a lot of its initial permitting through the state process and then had come back to the city for the zoning part of it. So a lot of that work was already done. The city held certain public hearings that were required by the state for the process to move forward because it is the municipality in which the project was occurring. I don't know that those sorts of requirements would be the same for battery energy storage, but as long as we're at least referencing the fact that these projects are being reviewed at the state level and permitted at the state level, are we comfortable with that level of oversight?
Well, that's a fairly ambiguous statement. So I could envision a day where a lot of our projects aren't going to be permitted at a state level because they don't meet a certain threshold of
Okay.
energy storage capacity, right? So, I don't know, Paul, you're probably more on the
So
regulatory
we have that today,
side,
like on the
so.
solar site, anything less than 50 megawatts is not regulated by the State Utilities Commission. It is regulated by the local government unit, which would be the city. So for
Sure.
solar, the cutoff's 50 megawatts. I
Yeah.
don't know what it is for battery storage offhand.
Right.
But it might be, in the neighborhood of megawatts. It's not kilowatts. So there, you know, the way this is, or the definition of tier one and tier two, there's probably a gap in there.
Okay. So we would want to understand what that level of megawatts is at which a project would be permitted by the state versus permitted by the RGU. Yes?
Yep.
Okay, that's helpful. Okay. Yeah, so the model is suggesting that you do have permit requirements for tier one. I think what I'm hearing is that maybe we can mention that they're allowable under city zoning code, but that's kind of the end of our permitting, and we just don't have that requirement in there. And then tier two, we would ensure that our definition of a tier two is accounting for any gaps that might appear here, and then taking into account where Minnesota would step in for permitting. So that's helpful. Yeah, decommissioning plans. These are all also things that are part of our solar ordinance, which is that any of these larger projects have to have some kind of a decommissioning plan. I think we'd leave that in. Also recommended is that there are requirements that your local, like specifically a lot of ordinances reference your local fire department, ensuring that they have some sort of training in the first response to accidents at a site like this. So I think we would include information about that. I'm going to talk with both the building official and the fire chief about how they would like to see that language in there. So we'll probably deviate slightly from the model just to get more of our local processes accounted for. Does everybody feel like that's reasonable to do? Yeah, okay. And I think finally, I just wanted to talk a little bit about if there are any, so the code that's the model code does not really account for zoning for the larger projects. So it's just not really mentioned. The smaller projects, it does have language in there that they'd be allowed in any zone. With the larger projects, when they are kind of this more utility scale, at least for our solar code, we are restricting those to RA districts only, so residential agricultural, which kind of by definition is putting them toward the edge of town, in areas that are maybe more recently incorporated. And I think that's worked well for, the Hoot Lake solar project. That actually brought in some new land to the city through annexation, which was helpful for our tax base. But when you're thinking about maybe some of these battery energy storage projects, at least from my understanding, is they can be a little bit smaller and more compact. Potentially, they could be appropriate in, say, an industrial zone. Would you be open to exploring zoning that would go beyond just the residential agricultural on the side of town, and maybe consider on a case-by-case basis having them be available in more zones, possibly even a business zone?
Yeah, we have several substations around town. I think we would want to see the ability to locate these
Near a
in and near
substation?
those facilities. So
Okay.
I don't remember how those are handled. If it's not in an industrial zone, like I have one in a residential neighborhood, is it spot zoning for that site, or is there a variance with that, or
Like with
conditional
existing substations?
Yeah.
I'm not sure, actually.
Yeah.
I can look into that.
And just another note, I believe the threshold for battery storage for regulation at the state level is 10 megawatts.
10 megawatts?
I think it's worth cross-checking, but that's
Sure.
believe to be the case.
Okay. Okay, so I can look into the existing substation zoning, and maybe we do something that kind of matches that. Does that sound reasonable to everybody? Okay.
I think aside from that, starting with the solar ordinance as a template wouldn't be a bad way to go.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've been looking at and trying to integrate together. So yeah, it is possible that we could just update the solar ordinance to include battery energy storage systems, or if we want to keep it as a truly distinct use, then we would just add another section. So I can talk with Rolf about what makes the most sense, but that's kind of all the direction I was looking for tonight. I just wanted to make sure that as I'm starting this process, that I'm not like way out in left field and coming back to you with stuff that makes no sense. So I appreciate all the input and the expertise.
Absolutely.
Awesome, thank you. Anything else? No? All right, meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
thinking.